source, I guess if you're careful, but I do see ferret attacks. Hawks commonly, rarely do they live through them, but I have seen that. And raccoons typically are an outdoor problem for outdoor aviaries. But I have one client with a blue and gold, a raccoon's broken into her house twice, and the second time almost killed her blue and gold. So it does happen. That just means a little bird's been beat up by a big bird. It's usually mate aggression, typically a pair of cockatoos in a cage, and the male becomes aggressive and bites off her upper beak. Very, very common problem. It does happen in pet birds. I have seen a Senegal take the beak off of a budgie. I even saw a kite kill a budgie in my clinic. Budgie, kike angry, run around the back, grabbed him, threw him on the phone. Big bird always wins, and the little bird loses something, a toe, a beak, sometimes their life, unfortunately. All animal bites are emergencies, and they need immediate care. Bite wounds are life-threatening in birds, especially for cats, dogs, and other types of wildlife, because they carry this bacteria on their teeth and claws, and even the slightest scratch or the shallowest bite wound can, within 24 hours, be deadly. They become systemic with this bacteria, and they really don't survive that very easily. Even if your bird looks normal, you need to seek veterinary care immediately. All animal bites can still cause crushing injuries and internal injuries that may not be apparent on physical exam. And even if there was only physical contact, you need to take your bird in. Or if you don't know, let's say your bird's on the floor missing a few feathers and your cat disappeared down the hall, something happened. May have been nothing, but it could have been really serious. And so finding bite wounds and scratches on a bird covered in feathers is pretty hard, even when you have somebody holding your bird. So assume the worst and react that way. So first aid for animal attacks, if there's bleeding, stop the bleeding. Nothing else can be recommended. There's no home treatment for serious infections or internal injuries. Call your veterinarian on the way to the hospital. Tell them what happened so they can be prepared by the time you get there.
How much blood can a bird lose and survive? Are we talking half an ounce? Half a gallon?
He showed me once.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay. Glad I could help.
There's a method to my madness. We will get there. That's an excellent question. And I think you'll be surprised. Bleeding. It's usually the result of trauma or injury. And it can originate primarily from beaks, nails, blood feathers, skin. It's about the only places that we see them bleed from. Any blood loss is a concern, but healthy birds have remarkable clotting abilities, and they can lose really large volumes of blood before you have to worry. And here we are. That's not showable. I'll read it to you. Okay, so the amount of blood, total blood volume in their body, that's really not a lot of blood, but it's a little. So if you look at an Amazon, say average 450-gram Amazon, the amount of blood in his whole body is 45 cc's. Do these amounts make sense to everybody? Cc's? Okay. So a macaw weighs 1,000 grams. It's going to have 100 cc's total in his body. So 100 cc's is, I can take up to 10% of that bird's blood volume. So that's about 1% of his body weight. So if we have a 450-gram Amazon, I could take 4.5 cc's and he wouldn't even know it was gone. A macaw could take up to 10 cc's. It's never minimal amount of blood. The best thing to do is nothing. Put him in his cage and just watch him to see if it stops on its own. If it does stop, make an appointment, have him seen, make sure there's nothing more serious. If it doesn't stop in less than 5 minutes, you need to administer first aid, and we'll get to what that is. Watch him for about an hour to make sure it doesn't start again. If it doesn't stop, or if he's showing signs of weakness, listlessness, just go to your veterinarian. call them first, but do go. If your bird is bleeding pretty severely, you need 2 people. One stops the blood while you're driving there, and the other person drives there. So how do we handle bleeding? Well, it depends on where it's coming from. So let's say it's a bleeding in the beak, he fell off his perch, or we trimmed the nail too short. Wipe away the blood so you can see where it's coming from. Put a small amount of clotting gel and a little bit of direct pressure. Put him in his hospital cage and just watch him. And go back to the previous slide. If it doesn't start within 5 minutes, you should be fine. Give him an hour. If it doesn't start within an hour, there's no further head trauma. So what about broken blood feathers? Very common, probably the most common reason birds bleed ever. I do not pull them. I don't recommend pulling them. I know that's been the sort of treatment of choice forever, and some people still teach that. I haven't pulled a blood feather in 15 years. I don't think it's the right treatment for it. First off, it's painful and it's traumatic. There are large blood vessels in there. There are nerve endings. And wing and tail feathers are attached directly to the periosteum of the bone by a ligament. And you start yanking on that, you definitely get their attention. So I don't recommend pulling feathers for that reason. It can also damage a follicle. If you damage a follicle, a feather may not grow back, or it could grow back slightly deformed or irregular. When you pull a blood feather, the theory is it stretches the vessel, and the vessel snaps back, and it clots, and everything's beautiful. I've never seen that happen. They continue to bleed, and the problem is now you're in a follicle 1.5 inches deep, and you can't get in there to stop the blood. It makes it more difficult to do that. And so what ends up happening, you have to pinch close the follicle. It still bleeds inside the follicle. You end up with a hematoma, which is just a little pocket of blood that could become a problem. Is when you do pull this feather, and if the follicle makes it, it's going to grow a new feather, which is going to be a blood feather. Now you have another blood feather within a couple of weeks that's going to be prone to getting broken. But if you leave the feather in, you get the bleeding to stop, you allow that feather to grow another few days, it's going to grow past that broke point, and your threat's going to be gone unless he breaks it in a different spot. So it's better to leave the feather in. Down the road, you're going to have a lot fewer problems. So how do you handle it? Well, if the feather is not bleeding, there's probably going to be some blood on the bird's side, but if it's not actively bleeding, put him in a cage and watch him for a couple of hours.